I'm Bill Castle, and this is Free Expression. This program is all about conveying the Christian message from a Catholic point of view and defending the liberty which makes it possible to do that. We discuss how to overcome anxiety, and we look at a new university program that combines faith with professional competence. Join us, sit back, and enjoy some free expression. If you're of a certain age, you probably remember Mel Brooks' film comedy High Anxiety, a spoof of Alfred Hitchcock's classic Vertigo. Brooks has always been a master of wacky satire, but his 1977 feature did tap into a human reality. We all live with some level of worry or fear, and there's plenty to fret about, from whether the kids are safe driving at night right up to when the apocalypse is scheduled to hit. It's a human condition, and Catholics are by no means immune. Are we all doomed to a life burdened by anguish, or do our Catholic traditions point to ways we can gain control over the things that trouble us? My guests are convinced that Christianity holds the answers. They're Bennett and Leanna Heider, and they've written a book titled Anxiety, A Catholic Guide to Freedom from Worry and Fear, new from Sophia Institute Press. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you, Bill. We're very honored to be here.
Thank you.
Now, your background is in counseling and therapy, and this book draws on both faith and clinical experience. If you would, summarize your approach for us, would you?
I'm licensed as a marriage therapist. I generally work with couples and marital issues, and I have found that the psychology on that, the ways of handling stress and distress, from a clinical point of view, very helpful. But the bottom line, I think, is that the foundation of good marriages, or good communication, or a healthy life is the tenets of the Catholic faith. So I tried in 2002, since then I've been trying to integrate the best of psychology with the Catholic faith, and I find them very commensurate and very complementary overall. So that's kind of the perspective I come from.
In my experience, I found that a lot of people struggle with anxiety and trauma. And so that has been a significant, something pretty significant that I've worked with and that influenced our decision to try to tackle this in a book for a Catholic audience.
Right, and we should clarify that you are father and daughter.
Yes.
So it's all in the family. What is it about the Catholic faith in particular that you find so conducive to alleviating all of our anxieties?
I think the Catholic perspective, one of my favorite Bible verses is John 16:33, where Christ says, "There will be trouble, but I have come to overcome the trouble." So I think in the Catholic perspective, there's a history and a tendency to lean into problems, to address problems, and then overcome them. And I think the best psychology these days, where the way neuroscience is going and the best practices, is coming around the same kind of conclusion of leaning into problems is the best way to resolve them and keep them from dominating you. The temptation to avoid all problems, which is not a Catholic or Christian perspective, doesn't seem to help. And then the tendency to think it's me against the world, I'll take on everything, and all problems all by myself, that's also antithetical to the Catholic view. The Catholic view is with Christ, we can face the trouble of life, and there will be trouble, like he says, and with him we can overcome it. Now, he also expects something from us. Maybe we could call it best practices or integrating some wisdom of modern psychology, which is very profound, particularly the neuroscience of the last 25 years. So the integration of the two, I think, is very powerful. It's really trying to bring Christ into our life and to live the best life we can, given the best resources we have.
I can see where something like the sacrament of reconciliation would have a strong psychological impact. Is there anything else in Catholic worship or piety that lends itself particularly to freeing us from fear and worry and other forms of anxiety?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Just the fact that our faith calls for us to look inward into ourselves, to see what is going on interiorly. Our faith has never been one that called for us to run from things with fear. It calls for us to approach, especially ourselves, to be able to look into ourselves in an examination of conscience, even just the way that we can learn to pray. And the Catholic Church has so many rich traditions in prayer and different approaches to that. A lot of it really involves being in the present moment, present with the Lord, in the sacraments, being able to sit with the Lord in the monstrance, in adoration. And I think a lot of the work of managing our anxiety really involves learning to be present, be in the moment, be aware of our thoughts, our emotions, and our feelings. And I think that any Catholic who is trying to grow in their prayer life is already doing some of those skills in their relationship with the Lord. And some of those same practices that we do through our faith can be skills that we can apply towards learning to overcome our anxiety.
Is this power in the Catholic tradition, is that something that just happens, that's readily accessible, or does it require some input from the priests, from other members of the parish family? How can this really be maximized? What does it take to really bring about this healing effect?
That's a really good question, Bill. Let's say a mental health problem, mental health concern, it always has an impact on our relationship with others. And then concomitantly, the love and the support we get from others also has a great impact on our mental health. The Catholic Church sees just about everything kind of interpersonally. I'm not alone. I'm in a relationship with God, and I'm required to love my neighbor not only as myself, but as God loves them. So there's a radical interpersonal aspect, Catholic and Christian thinking about problems. On the other hand, I have my responsibilities that I bring to the table when I'm having a problem. So looking to myself first, looking at the big plank in my eye before we go after the trouble in yours, that's Catholic thinking. But not in the sense of it being onerous, horrible guilt on me and I'm a horrible person. It's nothing like that. It's just that what can I change? How can I grow that not only enhances my life, but the lives of those around me? So I think that's all in the Catholic tradition, and even the Eucharist, very personal relationship with Christ, is to strengthen me, to be more loving to everybody else I'll meet today or this week. Or Leanna mentioned about the silence and the quiet, that kind of stopping the kind of unstoppable train of thoughts and worries and anxiety that is congruent with the Catholic faith, to really just take a big pause and ask Christ what he wants us to do. These are invaluable tools for us to not get caught in the weeds and the distractions of our daily life that bring us so much anxiety.
Now, in your book, you give a lot of practical tips. You deal with things like insomnia and stress, and finding coping mechanisms to deal with various problems. What are some of the points that you stress in the book?
One of the most basic strategies is learning to breathe. It's something that we all do automatically, but it's also one of the autonomic bodily functions that we have that we can also control to a degree. So we can choose to take a breath, or we can choose to hold our breath, but also, if we're doing that, our body will at some point take over and say, no, you need to keep breathing. Why breathing is so important from a neurological standpoint is because when we are feeling fear, when we are feeling anxiety, our body, in the state of anxiety, our body is in this state of what's called fight or flight, where there's some part of our nervous system that thinks that we are in danger right now. And when we're in danger, our body goes into survival mode. So it kicks into gear this chain of internal responses so that we can literally run away from the saber-toothed tiger. Now, in our modern day, we're not encountering many saber-toothed tigers. It might be an email that is creating this kind of anxiety. And so it's totally and often an overblown response. So our body has gone into this fight or flight mode. We're filled with adrenaline. How do we communicate to our nervous system that we're not actually in danger, that we don't need to run for our life? One way we can do that is through our breathing. When we take not long, crazy breaths or anything like that, but just measured breathing, breathing in, pausing, and breathing out. And we just literally practice breathing normally sometimes and in a very intentional way. If we do that for a couple minutes, that will communicate to our brain, to our limbic system that is freaking out on us, sending off all these alarm bells. That will communicate to our brain, oh, actually, we're not in danger right now. We don't need to run for our life. I am okay. I am safe right now. If we can get our body to understand what our mind might know, which is that we're safe right now, that can calm down the really physical symptoms of anxiety that we can sometimes experience. So as simple as it sounds, it's actually kind of complicated, but learning to breathe, that's one of the things that we talk about in our book. We also talk about more cognitive strategies. So I'll let my dad talk about reframing.
The reframing is really a key skill that's really become prominent the last, let's say, 25 years, which is if you put a different frame on the picture, you'll have a different reaction to it. So let's say you're in a troubling situation, traffic is too slow, or my kids are being a little disrespectful, or my boss is asking me to work late. Reframing would be, rather than to see that as a source of dread, which would mean my three options are fight, flight, or freeze, like Leanna said, but to reframe it as an opportunity to grow. Just last Sunday, Bishop Burbage in our Diocese of Arlington challenged all this men. It was a men's conference. But during the homily, he goes, I challenge you guys, as you're driving through Northern Virginia with all the traffic due to the construction, rather than to get grumpy and irritable every time you see construction traffic slow you down, I challenge you to see this as an opportunity to grow in patience. I'm sitting there at the Mass and watching the bishop do this, and I go, well, this is an amazing intervention. He's challenging us to reframe the traffic problem as not something that's stopping me from meeting my goal when I want to, which it probably is, into an opportunity to grow in patience, which is a very, very important virtue we need to acquire to have peace and to overcome anxiety. So the aspect of reframing is plenty in the Catholic Church. You can even read all the Beatitudes where Christ says, when the ancients said this, I say that. You know, when they say if you're persecuted, you're supposed to be in despair. I say when you're persecuted, you'll grow closer to God, etc. He's reframing, spiritually reframing these as opportunities to grow in holiness. And that stops the anxiety, or at least paralyzes it for a while, into shifting it to an opportunity to grow. Growth and anxiety are incompatible. So when we get in growth mode, our adrenaline pumps and gives us great strength and overcomes the tendency to be kind of hunkered down and fearful and anxiety.
Yeah, you're really connecting the spiritual with the psychological. It's an interesting linkage. This book is just in the process of being published as we're speaking, and we should point out that since it is such a family affair, we want to give credit to all of the authors. So there's a wife and a mother involved in this too. Lorraine must also be credited. How can people find out more about the book?
The best way to find out about the book is to go to the publisher, Sophia Institute Press. If you put your Google search in there, you'll find Sophia Institute Press, and they allow you to order it ahead of time or get more information about the book or read some initial reviews.
Well, anxiety is something that everybody deals with at some time or other, and this book could provide some excellent insights into how to cope with it. Thank you very much for taking time to tell us about it.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for all you're doing for everybody, for the church, and thanks for the opportunity for us to discuss this. We're very grateful.
Thank you very much.
An ongoing concern among those in Catholic higher education, professors, students, parents, is striking a balance between faith and competence. We want young people to emerge from Catholic colleges and universities as well-formed Christians, but we also want them well prepared for careers, and no small concern here, able to live their lives of faith in the working world. Ave Maria University was established by a successful Catholic entrepreneur Tom Monahan, founder of Domino's Pizza. I worked for Tom for almost 10 years, in fact, and I know that faith and competence were very much on his mind. Now the school he started has established a special program to give clearer shape and direction to the quest for balancing the personal and professional aspects of life. It's called the Institute at Ave Maria University. Daniel Shreck, the Institute's director, is here now. Dan, thanks for speaking with us.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for having me on.
Living a balanced Christian life is no small challenge. Please give us an idea of how you folks are approaching that.
Yeah, so I think first there's a context. How are you balancing the Catholic faith and education in the context today? And how we answered that question 500 years ago or even 50 years ago is much different than today. Tom Monahan founded this university because he saw a pressing need, inspired by John Paul II and Ex Cordia Ecclesiae, and given his background as an entrepreneur and business builder. Seeing that, he said, let's start a new university. Now, we look at the context today, whether it's gender confusion, what's happening with AI, global trade wars, manipulating the human genome, any of these things, and we say, we need a response. And that response is both through the incredible 36 majors we have, but also through this institute, which gives our students a core suite of skills that every leader needs from any industry to succeed personally and professionally. That is our response, effectively, is our students. And that's how we balance it through both our academy, what you're learning in school, and through this institute.
All of those issues that you mentioned have profound moral implications. A person of faith working in the world today is going to be faced with some interesting challenges, I would think.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. A university, just like our faith, is universal. And that certainly has to do with what we're teaching, the complement of skills you can learn and different subject matters from engineering that we have here to biology or theology. But we also have to be in dialogue with the world. And I don't mean this in some squishy 1970s kind of dialogue. But if we really want to be effective, or really we want our students to be effective ambassadors to the world, we have to call the world in. And we do that in the Institute by assembling what I think is a world-class network of executives, leaders, moms, dads, religious, all of whom are Catholic, obviously, to inform what we learn in the Institute. So if you say, I want the next great leader in a given apostolate, well, what's happening with apostolates today? Or if I want the next great leader who's going to be an incredible accountant, scientist, going on to grad school, or even just a mom and dad, very importantly, we have to have that dialogue with incredible people and bring them into Ave Maria University. So that's really what we're trying to do, and that's how we can be a crossroads for a transformative education at a great return for our students and their families.
Yeah, how is that going to play out practically? Are students going to be taking courses in this program, or are you going to be holding seminars? What's the actual structure?
So the structure is side by side with what you're learning every day in your major course of study. The Institute itself is about a time commitment of 3 to 5 hours per week, step one. Step two is each month, inspired by John Paul II, we're learning something personal, professional, and cultural. And you do that in relation with a mentor, with small groups, or with all of the scholars in our institute. Then each month has a theme. We've had a work month. Literally, we're doing manual labor. We have an investment month this month, AI month. And so in the first 2 years in the Institute, just like in the first 2 years in our core curriculum, where you're learning all the different liberal arts and humanities and learning how to think, you get that core suite of skills in the first 2 years. And let me give you an example of how intensive and fun it is. So imagine you're a student, you want to study mechanical engineering, and all week you've been taking classes on sacred scripture and some calculus, etc. Then, a Thursday, you come in for a master class. So at the beginning of this month, let's say this month, the theme was business startups. And so Dave Duran comes in, who's a well-known Catholic and CEO, who's done quite well across several different businesses. He actually just divested of one. He's a great guy, and he's one of our trustees. He says to you, Bill, this month's theme is business startups. Bill, here's the challenge. You have 1 month to do it in your small group. I want you to create a $100 million business with a $10,000 seed investment. I'm going to teach you how to do that over the next few weeks, and then you're going to present that business in 5 minutes to the entire campus in a Shark Tank competition, and Tom Monahan, the founder of Domino's, Legatus, and this university will judge you. The winner gets $10,000. And that happened in October.
Wow.
So all of our scholars got together from all different disciplines. It's not just business, importantly. We're trying to create a very well-rounded graduate. And a nursing student won. It was Group 12, and they won $10,000 to start this business, and they incorporated it over Christmas break. Each month is like that.
This sounds like a combination of an MBA and we on Shark Tank. Very
it's
interesting
kind of
approach.
Like an MBA, and to the extent that Drakeman, who's a emeritus professor at Notre Dame, has outlined how the humanities used to be intertwined in the late 1800s at places like the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. You learn the humanities and business. So we're doing that, but it's not just business. You certainly learn the humanities in your major, right? That's what every student does here. And then a select students will do this institute where you're not just learning business, but business, decorum, AI, leadership, marketing, all delivered this month investing by some of the best people in the world who've perfected that craft. That is a really well-rounded education. Why do you need that? Because if you become a leader, let's say you're a teacher, but you become a principal. What do you learn in elementary education about being a principal? Nothing. But when you become a principal, you have to know about HR, marketing, fundraising, leadership, project management, what a discounted cash flow is. All of these things, all of a sudden, need these CEO-like skill sets, and that's what we teach in the Institute.
Let's turn this around and look at it from the corporate point of view. How do you think that the companies to which these young people eventually apply for jobs will react to this kind of experience that they've had?
I think it's great because no matter one's political affiliation or views at the cocktail party, as the case may be, everyone wants a worker that works hard, comes in early, gets their hands dirty, will get coffee for you, is a critical thinker, has practical skills. That's what everybody wants, despite what they may say, because you got to get work done. And you want someone who's well-rounded so that when they go into the room, they can talk about Shakespeare or monetary policy or business or what they read that day in the Wall Street Journal or their family. And so we don't want our graduates 10 years or 4 years out of school saying, what should I do? Who am I? We want them to discover that now to deliver a good return for themselves and the company that hires them or the grad school that brings them on board or the seminary.
Well, you've certainly got an interesting list of people who are advising you and contributing to this program, people representing some very high-profile companies.
Yeah, it's been great to go to great Catholic leaders and executives and say, look, we have this new way you can contribute to a university. It's not just about money, and actually primarily it's not about that. How can we use your devotion, skills, and expertise to form these kinds of students that are in demand, that the world needs? And so let's form them by using your experience, and that's something 99% of the time as you see all these different executives, they're really into it. And so I think we are building a network that's second to none, not just at Catholic schools, but any school. I went to Columbia Business School, worked in the hedge fund industry for years, and I know those kinds of people, and there's a lot of Catholics there, so let's bring them together at a crossroads here at Ave Maria University for this very practical purpose.
Well, if somebody is interested in getting into this program or applying to Ave Maria University with a business orientation, where can they go to find out more and submit their application?
There's two places you can do it. You can go to the institute.avemaria.edu. We call it the Institute, so it's just institute.avemaria.edu. And then you can just go to the Ave Maria website. And if you have Google or Perplexity or whatever, you can Google it too. So if you're on the Ave Maria website, there's a place to apply. right? And you apply to Ave Maria University, which I would encourage anyone to do. And after if you're in eighth grade, it's tough, but if you're a rising senior, you should do it, or if you want to transfer in. And so once there, you can fill out an application, and there's a box you can check to talk about the Institute. And then current students already in school here, through some of our professors, can also inquire and apply to join the Institute. So you might know or you might not know that the academic rigor here is pretty high. We have a relatively low acceptance rate and a very high minimum and average GPA. And then we interview all of the young students that come here. And so you really get a robust 360 view of who someone is academically and personally, which is what we want here because we only have about 1,200 students on campus. And then some of those students might say, do you know what? I want to do this one extra step. I know it's going to be tough. It's going to demand some grit and determination. And so I would like to get involved in the Institute. And then we have a second process to bring them on. And that's not too different from what a football team would be, right? If you want to come here and take part of our great athletics program and you want to be on the football or the basketball team, you always have that kind of second conversation to make sure that you have the skills and determination to dribble the ball and win championships for Ave Maria University.
Daniel Shreck, the Institute at Ave Maria University. Thanks very much for telling us about this. This is a very innovative approach, very much in line with Tom Monahan's thinking, as I know him.
I hope so, and I hope it's a great honor to him and part of his legacy. Bill, thanks so much for having me on.
Don't forget to support your local Catholic radio station. In this time of censorship and so-called cancel culture, Catholic radio is becoming increasingly important as an alternative media source. Our programming is based on the Word of God and the teaching of His Church, and we bring you the factual, truthful information you aren't getting from the mainstream media. Support Catholic radio. Your generosity keeps Catholic outlets on the air, and donations to broadcast ministries can be tax-deductible. Urge your friends and relatives to tune in as well. Be with us next time when we explore other aspects of religious communication and look deeper into the great Christian heritage of free expression. Free Expression with Bill Castle is a production of Good Shepherd Catholic Radio and Company Publications, where good books, good music, and good radio are always good company. Dan Curris provided technical assistance. Theme and incidental music are by Dan Adam. The program was produced and directed by Bill Castle. This is Good Shepherd Catholic Radio.